Okay, I think we are ready to start. Hi, good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for choosing to join us. I know it's Friday, and it's if you're in London, it's very, very warm outside. Welcome to our event. It's Women in QA as part of the International Girls in ICT Day. Celebrations that are happening all over the world, but we chose today to talk about testing in particular, and to look at women who are working in that area and to talk about their careers. So I'll just go through the agenda for today. We have Marie Drake, who will be speaking straight after I've done all of these intros, and she will be talking about her career journey, as well as Tanya Mahmood as well, we have with us today. And then I'll be giving you a presentation myself about careers in QA. So just to start off, I'll introduce myself first of all. My name is Nicola Martin. My full-time job is as head of quality for a company called Adaga, and we are in the data science and AI space. Outside of work, I obviously volunteer with the BCS, and I'm part of the special interest group in software testing, otherwise known as SIGiST. And yeah, so today we're running this event. We wanted to try and celebrate some of the women in QA, and I'll be handing over to Tanya first of all to give a brief intro on her background, and before handing over to Marie, and she'll do the same, and then we'll get the ball rolling. Okay, Tanya, over to you.
Hi everyone, so my name is Tanya Mahmood. My background is in mechanical engineering, so I got my degree from the University of Brighton. I've just completed a 2-year graduate program at a company called Aviva. Aviva specializes in software engineering solutions for multiple engineering areas, industries, etc. And I've recently accepted a permanent role as a junior cloud DevOps engineer as well. And my passions are around STEM, so I work quite closely with lots of children, and I've done that for the last 5 years as well. Yeah.
Hi everyone, my name is Marie Drake. So currently I'm a quality engineering manager at Zoopla. It's a fairly new role, so I only joined the team just more than 2 months ago actually. So I joined during lockdown, which is quite a new experience for me. Prior to this, I was working as a principal test automation engineer at News UK. But in general, I've been in the software testing industry for just more than 7 years. I'm also a tech blogger, so I write about testing and test automation tips at mariedrake.com. And I am also a Cypress ambassador. So I co-organize the Cypress UK community meetup group, and I just help the community in terms of any questions that they have around Cypress. So most recently as well, I'm an online course instructor. So if you're interested to know about automation, accessibility testing, or just about accessibility testing in general, I have a free automation course at Test Automation University, so I can add that in the chat in case anyone is interested. At the same time, if you have an account in Ministry of Testing, I also have a course there about, it's just an introductory course about Cypress. So I can also add those links if that is of interest. But yeah, I'm really looking forward to share my career journey. And I think, are you gonna share any more slides, Nicola, or should I go ahead and share mine?
No, go ahead, you can start.
Okay, let me just share. Okay. So, when Nicola asked me to sort of present and talk about what's been my journey to tech so far, it's a really good timing because during the Women's International Day, I actually created a small video just to sort of basically also explain my career in tech, my journey so far in terms of creating my personal brand. So I'll be sharing the same thing to everyone again, and I hope that after this, it can inspire, like someone to also take the next step in case they want to make that next move into their career. So I'm sure others will also relate to this, but I actually first learned about HTML and CSS back when I was in high school, when I was customizing my MySpace profile. And MySpace was really, really popular back then. And during that time, I was always changing my background theme, adding lots of animations, changing background image of my profile. And it was probably the least accessible page with lots of glitters, lots of like moving animation. But the point was, I was learning how to code. So just a sort of timeline of my career journey so far. So I didn't actually start off as like working on the tech industry already. So I was actually working as a customer relations officer in 2008. So I was working for about 2 years in there. So I started working as an office not a consultant, sorry, but an office admin. So helping with like money remittance deposits to send to the Philippines. And it was after 2 years that I decided that it's time for me to actually study for my bachelor's degree. So around 2010, I decided to go for computer science with business and accounting. And partly because during that time I was still undecided as to what route should I take. So I wanted to learn bits about everything. So I wanted to learn about computer science, but at the same time, I also wanted to learn about the business and the accounting side. And after graduating, so that was 3 years, then in 2013, I applied for a graduate role. And this is when I found out that you can actually have a career in software testing. So when I was doing my final year project on my last year of my degree, I was doing most of the testing in our final year group. So and I didn't really knew that it was a career that I could actually go to because back at uni we weren't really taught all about the software testing techniques. We were lucky to just be introduced to testing it on a unit level. But then that was about it. So that was just my exposure around testing. So around 2015, so this is where I decided to go on a much more technical route. So I applied to become a test engineer, and I started learning how to write automated tests in different programming languages. And then a year after that, I was shortly promoted as a senior test engineer. So during these years, I was privileged enough to work with different types of companies because I was working as in a consultancy company as well. So I got exposed to different companies, learning about different programming languages. So that really helped me. And then in early 2017, so I actually had to go on my maternity leave. And during the late half of 2017, I decided to go back to work, and I was then working as a QA consultant. Then 2019, I accepted a new role as a principal test automation engineer. So this is when I really built a lot of my technical skills. And like I mentioned a while ago, currently I am exploring the quality and the leadership and the people management skills more as a quality engineering manager. So it was really a journey for me. So in 2018, I was given the opportunity to be a speaker at an internal Women in Tech meetup. So this was actually my very first hands-on technical session where I introduced, Cypress as a testing framework to the attendees. And I just remember feeling really nervous, and I was like really doubting myself that I'm going to mess something up. But it turned out really well. The attendees, they learn a lot. It was very collaborative. And I was then also asked by my previous employer to also present the same meetup to Edinburgh, and basically like deliver the same talk to the people who are also there. And 2019, so I decided to say yes to more like speaking opportunities. even if it was like very daunting for me, because during that time I realized that I had a lot of knowledge that I've just been keeping to myself, and I should really give back to the community, and talk about the skills that I've learned during like the past couple of years that I have accumulated. So one of that speaking opportunity was actually speaking at Women in Silicon Roundabout and presenting to an audience of more than 200 people. So we talked about software testing trends, and it was well received. At first, I was really nervous. I was even stuttering, but I think after a while, like I just got used to like speaking to the audience. This is one of the accomplishments that I was really proud of, and I was really glad that I didn't let my fear of public speaking stop me from doing it. Then it was also this year, so 2019, that I decided to build my personal brand by creating my tech blog. So I was inspired by different people from the testing community who's been blogging for years, and I wanted to also share the knowledge that I've accumulated throughout the years. So I started off, publishing blog posts weekly, which was part of my personal development goal. And I was really fortunate enough that my manager back on my previous employer pushed me into this right direction. I also started to leverage Twitter as a platform to share my blogs and connect with different people from the tech industry. And I also started reaching out to different meetup organizers if they're looking for first-time speakers and sharing my ideas to them. Then, so Apply Tools, they also did this visual AI, like hackathon. And this was really a community event. So um, the idea was like you do this like visual hackathon, and you send your submission. And then fortunately, I ended up one of their silver winners, which again, I think it helped to boost my personal credibility. And then last year, um, so I know last year it was, hard in terms of lockdown. I actually had plans already of doing an in-person meetup because I reached out to a meetup organizer, and I had some amazing news as well. Like I was fortunate enough to be invited, or to be accepted as a Cyprus ambassador. So my application, got through. We were supposed to do our first Cyprus UK community meetup in person, but then obviously lockdown happened. But then I know with this sort of opportunities, there's like we can still do it in like the virtual world. So I didn't let lockdown stop me from like doing all the plans that I had in mind. And this is when we were turning the events that I was supposed to do in person to like virtual meetups. So I did bi-weekly lunch and learn sessions about Cyprus. I talked about like various different topics, and because I started to build my online presence, other organizers started to reach out to me as well. And every time I said yes, the more and more opportunities came by. So apart from my blogs and meetups, I've also talked to as a guest to different podcasts, to sharing my journey again. I did an accessibility testing workshop as well, and I think it was just really like a proof that even though we live in a virtual world like last year, like if you really want to make that next move in your career, you can like find multiple ways. So in terms of where I am now, I'm happy to say that the opportunities are still coming in strong, and I'm really happy that Nicola invited me to do this talk, because I really want to inspire other women to do the same, and I always get like positive messages as well from the different platforms on how I've somehow helped them in their career, which is really good. And I think the last thing that I just want to talk about is I often get asked the question, like, how do you find the time to do everything? Like, I'm a single mom. It's hard work. It doesn't come easy, especially if you're trying to juggle work and life priorities, but you just have to find what works for you. I'm lucky enough that I've managed to find that right balance that really works for me. And in some cases, like the process of like doing it, like if I'm writing a blog, like the process is really long. The process of like creating videos, it's time consuming, but I just focus at what the outcome is, and that is I'm going to help like other people in their testing careers. So hopefully this has somehow inspire anyone who wants to make that change, or wants to make some improvements. And I guess if I just want to finish everything off, so if you have any specific questions, I'm always available in Twitter. You can also reach out to me via my personal blog at mariedrake.com, and I'm always happy to to have this chat so that I can help other people as well. And yeah, that's pretty much my 15 minutes summary of my career in tech.
Is it my turn now, Nicola?
Let me stop
Yeah,
share.
you can go next.
Stop share. Yeah.
Let's hope I share the right screen. Can you all see my screen?
Yep.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you.
Yes, fine.
So hi everyone. So my name is Tanya, and I'll be, sharing today my journey with you all. So to introduce myself a bit more and talk about my background. So I'm here, as I said, to share my journey and my, I'm quite early on my career, just to put it out there. So I haven't got that much experience like Mary has. So I started out to do with a degree in mechanical engineering, and after I completed my degree, I basically applied for a technical graduate program at Aviva, which I've just recently completed, which was 2 years long. It consisted of 4 6-month rotations, and each rotation was with different teams within the business itself. So my first rotation was as a second line customer support, and then my second and third rotations was as a software developer and / as a Scrum Master support as well, which was quite cool. And then my final rotation was as a cloud DevOps engineer. And since then, I have accepted a full-time role as well after completing my graduate program. So yeah. So having done a degree in mechanical engineering and then going into software development and now going into cloud DevOps, it's quite far and removed from each other. And I thought it'd be worth for me to share how I ended up here, really. So during university, I did a final year project at a company in Bristol. The final year project involved me actually testing composite parts, and the idea was to basically detect any defects early on in the composite part that are used, for example, in planes, etc. And that was to reduce, the manufacturing cost that is associated when you create a panel like that for different objects, etc. And using sensors, you were able to see like a visual representative of a defect. The idea was to potentially to improve the project, to enhance the imagery of the defect so it could be better detected, etc. And for that, you need a programming experience or some sort of skill, and that's where I lacked and I couldn't contribute much to. So I was very conscious at that point that I didn't have that experience. So after graduating, etc., I decided to actively look for roles in that area, and that's how I ended up at Aviva, just because had a skills gap, and so I was keen to overcome that and actually learn something about it. So to be successful in an industry like this, obviously I'm quite new. So I thought it'd be worth sharing the skills that I have gained over the years, which I thought have been quite useful in this area. So having had a degree in mechanical engineering has been really good, because it taught me a lot of the technical skills that I wouldn't have been aware of otherwise, like logical thinking and you know, the analytical methods, etc., of analyzing data, etc., and also project management, which has come in quite handy over the years. Whilst at university, I basically worked as a customer person, basically customer support person in Morrison's, which involved for me to travel around London throughout some holidays, etc., when I was working there, and allowed me to work with different teams quite quickly, basically, and work in different cultures, etc. And that experience itself taught me early on, again, you know, the importance of resilience, flexibility, and adaptability. So I just realized I didn't move my slides. So yeah, so by having had, you know, the technical degree and also doing working in Morrison's as a retail person, it was quite good, because it gave me a rounded experience early on with the technical skills, but also with the soft skills, etc. And an additional thing that I recognized in myself a lot, which has come quite useful in the recent years again, is that the need to not limit myself. And when I say I don't like limiting myself, it involves actually taking the risk when I'm actually afraid or scared, etc. It's a bit like taking a, you know, doing a bungee jump. And as you can see here, this is me jumping off without thinking, without hesitation, even though I'm actually scared of heights. But having done that experience actually just, you know, highlighted to me, you know, it's okay to be afraid and scared, but, you know, it's important to push yourself and overcome that fear so you are able to move forward, etc. And when I talk about risks and challenges, etc., additional things I had done during university and since, you know, having graduated as well, has involved actively trying to overcome these fears. One of them involved running for a vice president and treasurer for the Engineers Without Borders Society at the University of Brighton and Sussex. Having gone for a role like that, where, you know, you needed leadership skills, and I didn't have that, to be honest, and I was actually surprised that I got elected, to be honest, but either way, I was really grateful to having had that experience, because it taught me, you know, the importance of diplomacy and, you know, everything that it's associated with leadership at that level, working with different people, you know, coming up with solutions and, you know, navigating through challenges that we had that time. I've also been a STEM ambassador for the last 5 years, having had to work with a lot of children, adults, you know, around the UK with different STEM organizations, has been amazing, another amazing experience as well, because, you know, I was able to use skills that I wasn't good at before, like communication, because I'm quite introverted. So at university, I used to find it quite hard to talk to people, etc. So having gone through these STEM ambassadors programs that I used to do definitely helped me, you know, talk to a lot of people from different industries, from different walks of paths of life, etc., and share my passion of STEM, which was amazing. I also, you know, as part of risk taking, decided to, during one of my summer holidays, to travel to Norway on my own for 2 weeks. That involved staying in a remote area in a place close to Stavanger. Only 2 people lived there throughout the year, and I ended up looking after a cafe and lodges which were used during seasonal times and summer times, especially for hikers who go through that area to stay. So not speaking Norwegian and, you know, trying to, you know, adjust and learn what's going on. I luckily got the experience to go through like journals, engineering journals. So what happened was basically they have one of the oldest hydroelectric power stations, which was built just before the First World War by German engineers. And I actually stumbled across a lot of the journals and the blueprints and a lot of the technical drawings, which was quite exciting. I felt like an archaeologist to an extent. And I was able to, you know, do the research, because I decided to do a research and go through the documents, etc., and learn as much as I could. And it became really clear to me quite early on the skills that I had learned at university, like the technical stuff around like reading technical drawings, for example, came in handy, and I was able to understand it. And the fact that I can speak German was also handy. So I was able to understand it all. That really helped, and it just highlighted, you know, the importance of engineering in general. And then, you know, a term that I recently learned is net giver. So I like to be a net giver, and, you know, provide support wherever I can. So that's something that's become very important to me as part of the skill, and something that's quite important to me in regards to value as well. So yeah, so that's the skill set that I would say are useful in this area. So in regards to achievements, obviously, as I said, I'm quite early on in my career in general. So I don't have much to talk about in that regards, but I thought I'll share these little achievements that I've had over for the last few years, actually. So I actually did a research project at sixth form, which was funded by the Nuffield Foundation bursary for 6 weeks. So me and my team member, we ended up doing this research project in a sustainable area, which involved working with algae and trying to see how we can use it for biofuel, etc. And we ended up being selected by Imperial College to represent the UK in America at an international competition. And at that competition, we surprisingly beat out over 69 countries to win the gold medal, and got a scholarship. That was another thing, and also won bursary, won money. And so that was quite, you know, not even before I had even gone to university. Having done that project actually was very important to me, because it actually showed that I'm really passionate about engineering, and I wanted to go into that. And that was the reason why I actually applied at university for that degree as well, because initially I was planning on doing psychology, which is quite far removed from that. Another thing that I like to share is basically professional registration, because I've been quite conscious of it quite early on. So I managed to get the engineering technician accreditation from the Institution of Mechanical Engineers, which means basically either someone who has done an industry placement or has done an apprenticeship can go for that. And it means that you've met the minimum competency requirements in the engineering competency area. So you would get that title, basically accreditation, which was an achievement personally for me as well, because I had to do loads of report writing and a lot of like self-reflection, etc. in that area to achieve that. And another area I wanted to share is basically, you know, I really do like to throw myself at the deep end, to be honest, all the time. And that goes back to, you know, risk taking and challenges, etc. So alongside a few other grads from my graduate program at Aviva, we basically decided to have a discussion with our CEO. And you need to bear in mind the company has over 4,000 employees. So we decided to take the initiative to have a discussion with him about sustainability and what Aviva can do, etc., which was, you know, very scary but very amazing, because we got to learn about so many new things that Aviva was doing at that time and has been doing since then, etc. And it was just really well received, and something that I'm really proud of. And you know, I wouldn't have thought I would do something like that, but I did it in the end anyway. And now, I don't know if people are aware, I'm quite nervous at the moment, but public speaking is another area. So I'm quite new to public speaking. So I've only done a couple of public speaking events before, and that was through my company itself. So I'm still learning about that, but something I'm really proud of, because being an introverted person, to share and talk in front of people, be it in person or even virtually, is quite scary at times. So it's something that I wanted to share anyway, because, you know, it's something that you can definitely work on, and you shouldn't limit yourself at the end of the day. And then I wanted to share my goal for the next 5 years. So I know the picture on the top with the eng is not that good, because I couldn't get it to work, unfortunately. So in the next 5 years, basically, because I'm so new in the industry itself and into cloud DevOps, I'm still learning about cloud technologies, etc., is something that I would like to ratify if that's something I want to do, you know, full time, like long-term career-wise, or if it's something that I want to do temporarily and then move on, etc. So it's still something that I need to explore a bit more and learn more about. It's, you know, cloud technologies in general and the different providers that we have, for example. I also want to try and achieve my incorporated engineering accreditation. So that's just the second level up from the engineering technician. So that means that you have met the mid-level competencies basically as an engineer, and you are industry recognized engineer basically. And you can take that title with you anywhere in the world, which is amazing. And then I would like to, by the end of 5 years, start working towards my chartered engineering status. And for those who might not be aware, but the British Computer Society is also an institution that actually does professional registration in those areas. If someone is interested in that as well, to find out more on that. And then I would like to try and dip my toes, hopefully, into like team leadership, because at the moment I'm quite keen to get a good balance and a robust understanding of, you know, with the technical work that I'm working, but also the non-technical work. But I'm hoping by the end of 5 years, I'll, you know if I want to go more into leadership or not. But I would like that experience as well to go hand in hand. So yeah, so in a nutshell, this is me. I hope I was able to share something that could be useful to someone who is new to engineering in general. So the one advice I would give is basically be bold. It's okay to jump into the deep end, and it will stretch you, and it will, mold you into the person a lot faster that you want to become, basically. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you to Marie and to Tanya. They were, brilliant explanations of what you've been doing in your careers, and how you've got to where you are now. Tanya, I know you say you're new to this, but just keep on, because you're doing amazing things, and I can just foresee that you've got a really big career ahead of you. And Marie, you're already a rock star, so I don't need to say anything else to you. Anyway, okay, so let's carry on. Before I move on to my presentation, which won't be as glamorous as everybody else's here, but I just want to talk about starting in a career in QA and some pathways. If you want to, we will have a Q&A at the end of this, so you can actually add your questions if you have any. I can see somebody has already started, but if you would like to add your questions, we will try our best to answer them once I'm done. Okay. Bear with me. Just going to share my screen.
I have stopped sharing, right?
I think so, yeah. I'm just about to share mine.
Okay, brilliant.
Okay, so yeah, as I've mentioned before, I work with BCS software specialist group called SIGiST. And I also have a full-time job as head of quality for an AI and data science company, as I've mentioned, Adaga. What I want to talk to you about today is really about navigating a career in QA. So before I start that, I realized I didn't really talk about my background very much, so I'm just going to give you a quick run through with no slide. So I've been in testing for about 20 years. I think we must be coming up for 21 soon, which is the equivalent of, an American adult. So I've been doing this for a very long time. I've also done business analysis as well in my past. And so I'm really interested in business processes and, and as well as quality in terms of standards and ways of working. So rather than being more technical, like say Marie, for example, I've taken the other route, and it's been really beneficial to me. I've worked in so many companies. My CV is probably 5 pages now. and I need to try and cut it down. But I've worked in all different industries. I've just done everything, and it's just been an amazing journey. And it means that I never get bored of working in QA. And there are other areas that you can move into that still utilize testing, and I'll probably talk about that in a while. But I love quality, and I'm really passionate about making sure that companies I work for are adhering to potential standards, and just making sure that the products we put out the door are the highest quality that they can be. So I'm really, really passionate about that. My background in terms of working career, I've done lots of permanent placements, but I've also worked as a contractor and consultant for over 10 years of my working career. So it allowed me to work on lots of different projects that I wouldn't necessarily get the chance to do. Because if you're working in a permanent job, you may be working on the same system, say, for a long time, as opposed to being able to jump to different projects and different technologies. So that's really interesting, but obviously you've got to try and navigate your way through the marketplace, and you need to make sure your skills are, at the very best when you contract, because nobody wants to train a contractor on the job. They want you to come with those skills. So that leads nicely into what I'm going to talk about today. So I'm going to talk about some of the common myths around roles that involve QA, pathways into QA, roles involving software testing, and is a role in QA actually right for you? And I'm going to talk about the benefits of finding a mentor. I should actually talk about networking as well, so I may add a little bit onto the end, but I'll just start for now. So some of the common myths I hear a lot is that it's the easiest way to get into tech. Now, it is an easy way to get into tech, but it's not the easiest way, I don't think. I think the easiest way is to actually, you'd have to start from the very bottom. When I meet people, sometimes they think that it's very easy to just go into a mid-level to senior level QA role, and they don't need to actually work their way up. So when I started, I was a test analyst when I first started, and I actually worked in UAT, which is user acceptance testing, and I worked on a business team. So I basically got into QA that way, but I've had to work my way up ever since. So it's never been a completely easy ride, and I'm sure the others would attest to that. You can do a QA role with no tech experience. So it's a bit like what I was saying just now. A QA role really is, I think you get the best out of it if you actually have some experience in other areas of tech. You can bring that with you. I've heard of a lot of people going into it from very different careers. So I mentor as well, and I mentor people who come in from outside of tech, but they actually have skills within their current area which they can actually apply to doing a role in QA. So it's never a bad thing to not have the experience, but it's actually better if you have some, because it makes it easier to find your feet. People who don't code become testers. That's not entirely true, because obviously we have people who come from developer roles who want to merge the two, so software developers in test, and they come with great experience of development that they can then apply to testing, but then obviously they learn the testing skills that they need on top of that, and so it makes it a good match. And in the opposite direction, we have people who are already working in testing who then choose to improve their technical skills by learning more technical skills and tools, and just becoming a more rounded tester. You'll be bored with a role in QA, never. I find that no 2 days are the same, and that was a reason why I contracted for a long time. I didn't want that, but I now find with Agile, because you're working on smaller pieces of work and getting them out the door faster, you tend not to be working on the same thing, so it's not boring at all. And yeah, so you can find something that interests you. So when you're going to look for roles, don't just join the first company you find that has, let's say, a junior test role available, because that's not going to really benefit you. You want to find a role that you love. There's no career progression is one that I hear a lot, or QA is dead. That's another one. None of that is true. There is career progression, but as I've said, if you want to maybe branch out into a different area, you can do so. You can take your testing skills and move into something else. So yeah, there is career progression. And also, if you're working outside of an agile environment, they still recognize the older test roles. So there is definitely chance for career progression depending on what company you're with. So the pathways into a QA role tend to be this way. So apprenticeships first. So you may join a company and they then pay for your training, and you can train that way. It's becoming more popular again, and BCS are absolutely championing apprenticeships as a way into tech. So the same applies for a chance to get into QA. You can come through university, so that might be through a computer science degree, or actually other areas. I've known people who've had law degrees who decided at the end they don't want to do that, and so they move towards QA because they've been headhunted maybe by an agency when they were finishing their degree, and they've moved in that way. You may be doing a complete career change. So it may be that you want to, you're fed up of working in the area you're working in, but you realize that you've got skills that could apply and you really want to get into tech. So it's a career change. Or you could be part of a user team. So for example, as I said, I started off my career working in a business team and doing doing UAT. So that's the way I started and moved into the industry. And I know a lot of other people who've done the same. And then once you're doing that every day, your other job becomes secondary, and then you suddenly decide that that's what you want to do. So I've borrowed something from Test. It's actually a map that they produced on their state of testing report in 2018. I would have done the more recent version, but they actually don't include it anymore. But it gives a breakdown of the types of roles that are involved in software testing and QA. So if you see this list, I mean, you've got test engineers or QA engineers and test leads. Some roles are just called tester, which is quite a basic role. So they could be just very junior. I can see here that you've got developers in test, and you've got test architects, etc. And you've even got a newer role like a test coach, which is ultimately where I see QA roles moving towards, that we're more like coaches and advising as opposed to actually just doing the work, because testing is now done by so many different roles within an engineering team, for example. So we're doing a lot more advising. I would say just in those numbers, obviously seeing that was from 2018, I would just say that at the moment for women in tech in the UK, I think it's something like 20% of all people in tech, it's actually broken down as women. So that's a number that we need to improve. We need to, get those numbers up. So to see all of these roles that are potentially doing testing within their role, it shows you that you don't just have to be part of a QA team. You can actually get involved in it and then work your way into a QA team if you chose by doing one of these roles. So is a QA role right for you? Software testing can be challenging. It really depends on what you're doing. So obviously, if you're just starting out, if you like a challenge, then obviously you go for something based on maybe your degree, if you like, or or other experience that you've had in another area. Some projects require specific domain knowledge or experience. So, for example, when I contracted, I worked specifically on Microsoft Dynamics and 365 and Azure. So I only worked in those areas for almost 10 years. So when contracts came up, I was somebody that people went to, and you get well known within the industry. But then obviously, you know, I got fed up of only being offered those roles, and that's why I stopped contracting, so that I would get the experience in other areas and on other domains and gain more knowledge that way. It definitely requires an analytical and a creative mindset. And I say that because you've really got to think about what you're testing and how you test it, and think of novel ways to do that. So, you know, that's where I say it's a creative thing, even though, you know, at first you might not consider it as a creative role. It requires really, really good communication skills, because you're probably having to report to people or speak to people to gain knowledge of requirements at all different levels. So, you know, it really helps if you're good at communicating. Yeah, I mean, I know, like, for example, Tanya said that she was quite introvert. That actually doesn't go against you if you want to do a role like this. Surprisingly, I actually count myself as being introvert / extrovert. I need time to, you know, recharge my social batteries after, you know, a week at work. So, you know, I absolutely understand that, but I know that for the job I do, it requires me to speak to people at all levels. You should be happy with change. I've put this one in here because, like I said earlier, you may find that no 2 days are the same. And if you're a person who likes things to stay the same, that doesn't tend to happen in QA. And, you know, you've got to be prepared for all of that change. And also, like I said before, if you're contracting, for example, you could be working on different technologies from project to project. So it really means that you need to be somebody who's comfortable with change. So as I'm coming to the end of this now, I wanted to talk about mentoring. So apart from working with BCS, I actually am head of mentoring and education for Women in Tech Global, and I'm part of their UK chapter. And I also mentor through BCS as well. So, you know, what I've learned so much in my time as a mentor, and I've been doing it for, I think, a year and a half now. Even though I've been in the industry a long time, I never really considered that I had skills that people would be interested in. And that's the mistake I made. And since then, I've learned from so many of my mentees, you know, just how beneficial my skills are and my knowledge is. And just being able to help them with simple things like getting ready for, you know, performance reviews, or helping them to set short-term and long-term goals. It's been fantastic. You really do support your career when you know, consider having a mentor. It's something that you can dip into and dip out again. So if you don't want to do a whole coaching like session with you know, for 6 months or a year, you know, you could potentially do this for a short-term thing. You know, you maybe want to just bounce ideas off of somebody. You can do that with your mentor. It really, really helps you to improve your performance and develop your strengths in different areas. And it helps you to consider things that you didn't before, and especially around training and, you know, just a career path, and just helps you to make the steps you need to get there. And I thoroughly enjoy being a mentor. I've learned so much, and it's opened up so many doors for me. And I wish I'd started it years ago. So I wonder where I would be now if I, you know, had done that a lot earlier. But it's becoming really, really popular again. So I do advise you to get a mentor. And beyond this, mentoring, I should have actually put another sliding about networking. Since we've been in lockdown, it's allowed all events literally to go online. I think a lot of the time people can't get to the offline events that happen. So they might sign up and then not go because they've had a bad day at work or something. But with the online events, it allows you to do them, you know, and you're more likely to go to them. So I think there's a benefit to both. But what it's actually done is allowed people to really open up, you know, their worlds in terms of what they're doing for training. There's been so many training courses and just loads of really beneficial soft skill sessions as well. Meetup have done lots and lots of sessions, you know, around, your mental health and just personally looking after yourself, and setting goals and things like that. And there are lots of other organizations that are doing the same, and I can't stress enough how important it is, especially if you're going to do a career in tech, to, like Marie alluded to earlier, sorting out your personal brand. You need to stand out from everybody else, and the way you do that is really to make sure that you have a good personal brand, and that you always working on that, and just always making sure that you keep your skills up to date. And networking, as well as mentoring, networking can actually help you to move up the career ladder. You can meet people, peers that you wouldn't necessarily have met otherwise. So I do really, really, really suggest networking as a way forward. So I didn't have much in conclusion, because I've talked a lot about all the stuff that's happening in software testing. Just again to say that there are many roles which involve software testing, so you don't have to limit yourself to just the roles within a QA team. If you think about the wider engineering teams, you'll find that most of those roles also include some level of testing. So you may want to pick one of those if you don't pick a QA role. Even with automation being a big thing, and again, you've heard Marie talk about it, and Tanya, there are so many technical paths that you can go down. So, find your niche, because that will make you marketable as well. And as I've said before, you need to find a career that you love, and you need to also find a day-to-day job that you love. So for me, I absolutely love QA and testing. I absolutely love all the other things that are related to it that I get involved in, and I just don't see myself ever doing anything else. I did before. I did business analysis for a while, and project management, but I didn't find as much joy as I find doing this. So, and because it allows me to work on all different projects, different companies, and I just enjoy this career, and I think I'll be doing it until I retire. So yeah, that's it from me. Obviously, if you've got any questions, do reach out, and we've got questions in the chat now, so I'll just stop sharing for a second. Okay. Right, so I'll pick up some of the questions. Okay, we had one from Gwen. I don't know if she's still on, but business CQA as an expense, what barrier to offshore, global and overseas at 30%, saving 70% USA labor cost as virtual online tasks can be done remotely? International giggers are desperate, race to bottom wages. I would say, Gwen, that the offshoring goes in waves. As I say, I've been working in this industry for 20 years, and I've seen so many changes happen. At one point it was really fashionable to offshore, and then you'll find in a couple of years after that, it comes back onshore. So, always make sure you're keeping your skills up. There will always be companies who are not offshoring, so there will always be jobs. I don't really know of a time when there were no QA roles. Just maybe during big recessions, like say 2008, 2009, around that time. But I was contracting, so it was a very different story for me. The contract market died. So, that's the only time that I've really known there to be no jobs. Obviously, if you contract now, you've got the IR35 thing to think about as well. But, I don't think that, offshoring is something that all companies can do. But so, just hang on in there if that's something that's affecting you now. It will come back around. Just trying to see if there are other ones. Marie shared all her links. Right, we've got a question from Andy, and I'll let one of you answer it. Is there a piece of advice that you would give to someone who is looking to develop a career in testing?
I can take this one, and I think Nicola, you've covered most of it as well. So I always suggest to start networking, like leverage networking really quickly. So if I have to have some sort of a regret when I was first starting out. So when I was first starting out, I didn't really network much. I was just keeping all the information to myself. And when I did networking, like past, couple of years, that's when I really learned, a lot about software testing. Even though I was doing it for more than 7 years, it was only really like the past couple of years that, I learned a lot. And so I would always recommend, like, there's big communities like Ministry of Testing, there's Test Automation Guild if you want to focus more on test automation. But in general, like Ministry of Testing covers a wide array of, like, different areas, and there's different channels, that you can join. And everyone in there is just really welcoming, like they're always willing to help out. So I would totally recommend doing the whole networking. And I think once we are in a position now as well to go back to in-person meetups, so I would recommend attending meetups as well, as a way of networking with other people, because even if you don't know, much about the topic, you want to learn more about it, it's the conversations at the end that can really help you. It could help you, build connections, like, people who are working on like different organizations, so you can learn more about what they actually look for in like the company that they're looking for. So networking is really key. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. We have a double question, one aimed at Tanya and one for you, Marie. So this is from Amal. So first for Tanya, have you faced any challenges transitioning from a graduate role to a junior role?
Okay, so right. So during the graduate program, obviously, I had some internal challenges that I had to overcome with, the fear of imposter syndrome was something that I've carried on with myself quite a while. And, the need to, I put a lot of pressure on myself basically to try and, perform as I can and try to compete with other people who are very senior to me around in the team as well. So those were the internal challenges that I had to really deal with and overcome with. So transitioning from a graduate to a junior role wasn't that hard at the end of the day for me personally, because I have a really good support system at the company itself as well. I have a few mentors. So one of my mentors is here today. I've got another mentor as well, and they've really helped me, work on these internal conflicts that I have, the pressure on the fact that I put too much pressure on myself unnecessarily, and the imposter syndrome, and realizing I deserve to be at the table here, I deserve to, share my ideas, etc., kind of thing. So those were the only challenges I personally dealt with, but I'm sure a lot of people, experience things differently. So yeah.
And imposter syndrome is something that you hear about a lot, especially amongst women working in tech. And it's something that we need to try and break. I'm completely guilty of saying that I think I'm not good at things when actually other people do consider that I am. I just need to take myself seriously. Sorry, you can hear my little boy in the background. So Marie, there's a question for you with regards to, oh, sorry, hang on one sec for me.
Normally, it's my daughter who does that.
Can you really? Yeah, I think I've remembered that. Yeah. Marie, with regards to moving from one company to another, how did you adjust to these changes? And were there any differences in technologies that these companies are using? Again, from Amal.
Yeah. So, if I speak with regards to my recent experience, so I actually took a week off before, joining Zoopla. And it's mainly because, like, I highly encourage, everyone, because I know, like, sometimes the norm is you finish Friday, you say your goodbyes, and then Monday you're starting a new company. But if you can, take a week off, like, just take that time to, recharge, to actually know more about, like the business. So for example, for me, it's about, researching what Supla does and quite luckily, I use Zoopla on a day-to-day basis. So I just spent, like that week, like trying to chill and, like recharge myself, because onboarding remotely is very different compared to onboarding, in person. And then, because my role is quite like people focused at the moment, so I what I did was, rather than talk about all the technical, stuff at the beginning, in order for me to transition and settle in well, I focus more on building personal relationships with my team. So I set out some catch ups with them, and in those catch up, we're talking about, like, okay, how are you doing? Like, what do you like? And we're not really talking about work. So if you build the personal relationship, then you know that you can ask all the questions comfortably, and you can like navigate yourself much more better. And in terms of difference in technologies, yes, so every company, they know they would always have changes in technology. So when I was working as a consultant, like every like 6 months or so, I would get assigned to a different company, and sometimes the programming languages is different. But what was good was, so before I joined a new company, like we actually have time to sort of, okay, um like study what programming language we're going to use. And I think if you know one programming language, so since I did Java at uni, um as long as you know one programming language, to be honest, the transition to other programming languages is not that difficult. There is just a couple of like syntax that's a bit different, but the actual sort of techniques, the way like you do like all the different like conditions, it's fairly similar. So I would focus more on learning about like the guidelines, the best practices, like the different design patterns, so you can apply that whichever programming language you're using. So hopefully that answered the question.
Thank you. We've got two more questions left, so I'll go with the first one. This is from Gemma. Are there resources on where to find a mentor? So there are. It depends. It's really actually, mentoring tends to be offered through groups. So, for example, with BCS, you can actually join as a member. And then there is a portal, a whole portal on mentoring. So you go and register your details and tell them what you want, and then they will, the system matches you up with a mentor. So there's that, or if there are any coding groups, or different women's tech groups, they tend to have mentoring attached to them. So for example, Women in Tech Global, who I am with, we actually have a mentoring program that we're starting up. So I can share some links, or I can share my email address, and if anyone wants to get in touch with me afterwards, I'd be more than happy to put you in the right direction. So I'll do that after this. The final question is, I'm trying to find my first job in QA, but even for junior positions, they expect 1 to 2 years of experience. I've got another one now as well. I was wondering if I should try to volunteer somewhere to get that experience in my CV. Is that a good approach? If yes, where could I find projects and/or companies to volunteer? That's from Andrea.
So I know that because I'm just trying to remember. So I think it's so there's this woman named Beth Marshall, and she was trying to, and I know it's not related to like the first job in QA, but like she was trying to gain like more test automation knowledge. So she actually created a test automation portfolio, because I think, like for us, if you've started off as a manual tester, sometimes the transition is very difficult to become a test automation engineer. So this could be the same. So if you're trying to transition, to get your first QA job, if you try to build like some sort of like a portfolio work, so you're willing to actually, share like your public learnings, if you have like a way of, like documenting it and maybe publishing it, as a blog post, or if you're trying to learn more automation, then you can create like different GitHub repos. Then I think that gives and that gives an advantage as well, because the potential employer will see that, okay, you have, done all these things on like your spare time, and nowadays there's so many free learning resources out there. So and that's a way of getting like the volunteering experience as well, because you're actually doing it like on your spare time. And there's a lot of like test automation like tutorials, there's a lot of like exploratory testing techniques that you can learn, like a lot of test websites that you can show your knowledge. So I think, yeah, that that can help. So if you're struggling to find the first QA job, maybe try to get that unfair advantage of building like a portfolio, so at least prospective employers can see that you actually have that motivation to actually learn new things.
Okay, thank you. Right, so we do have another question, and I think this is going to be the last one because we're over time. I was in the education field looking for a career change in testing. I'm an ISTQB certified tester. Any advice, please? Would age be a barrier? I guess I can take this one. No, not at all. I've actually worked with someone who retired and decided that they were bored and came back to work as a tester. And he was one of the best people I ever worked with. He was fantastic. And, it was a real shock for people in the office, first of all, but we got used to it totally because he had so much life experience that he could bring to the role. It was fantastic. I've got a pal here with me. So, oh, they can't see your picture, darling. Thank you. But yeah, no, there's no age barriers at all. Nothing like that. No. I think that is all of our questions. So I just want to say a big thank you to Tanya and Marie. Thank you so much for joining us today. Yeah, so I mean, as I've said, I think, Marie, you've shared some links. Tanya, if you want to share anything in the chat for people to get in touch with you, by all means do. I don't know if you want to say if there's any way to get hold of you. Are you on Twitter or LinkedIn?
I do have pages. It's just a bit hard to find me sometimes. So I'm just going to share my work email address if someone wants to reach out, and then I can give them follow-up links on any other additional things that I would like to share. So if that's okay.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thanks to everybody who stayed on. Really appreciate that you stayed until the end, and I hope you've all gained something from this. As we've all said, please feel free to reach out, and yeah, we'll give you more information post this event. Okay, thank you. That's it.
Thank you. Have a great weekend.
Bye, and you take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.